Welcome back to Noir Alley. I'm your host, Eddie Muller. Today we've got a film from the mid-50s that may not look much like traditional film noir, but it has the movement's post-World War II DNA ingrained in its bloodstream. Released by United Artists in 1956, it's The Killer is Loose, starring Joseph Cotten, Rhonda Fleming, and Wendell Corey. It's based on a 1953 Saturday Evening Post story by brothers John and Ward Hawkins. It was snapped up by 20th Century Fox months before it was published. It was originally intended as a starring vehicle for Victor Mature, in the role of a police detective whose wife becomes the target of a vengeful war veteran turned bank robber. The studio wanted Orson Welles to play that part. But none of that happened. A newly created independent production company, Crown Pictures, bought the property from Fox, and screenwriter Harold Medford adapted it into a terse 73-minute thriller. Medford wasn't a prolific writer, but he did have a couple of good noirs under his belt. 1948's Berlin Express and The Damned Don't Cry, made the following year. The neophyte producers assembled an A-list cast for what was essentially a B picture. Cotten, Fleming, and Corey were all on board before the producers signed the essential contributor to the film's success, its director. Oscar Bedecker is one of the more fascinating and colorful directors of the classic era. He was an orphan, born in Chicago, and to tell you the truth, I'm not sure of his real name. He and a younger brother were adopted by an affluent family named Bedecker, and Oscar grew up to be a star athlete at Ohio State University in the 1930s. Bumming around Mexico in 1939, he became obsessed with bullfighting and became a toreador after apprenticing with legendary matador Carlos Aruza. His skills ended up getting him a job as a technical advisor on Ruben Mamoulian's 1941 bullfighting romance, Blood and Sand. That set Bedecker on a course to become a director, and during the 1940s he made numerous B films, including a couple of fun noirs, Escape in the Fog and Behind the Locked Doors. But his breakthrough was 1951's The Bullfighter and the Lady, a fictionalized version of Bedecker's own life, in which Robert Stack essentially played the director. It was the first film on which Bedecker used the nickname by which he'd always be known, Bud Bedecker. Apparently, facing down bulls gave Bud the right temperament for dealing with producers, agents, and actors. In 1955, he'd just finished shooting another bullfighting picture in Mexico, The Magnificent Matador. It was photographed by Lucien Ballard, who was soon to become an essential collaborator. Now a freelancer, Bedecker signed on to direct The Killer is Loose to prove he could still effectively turn out a gripping film on a minimal budget and short shooting schedule. I've always loved this quote from the director. People wondered how I could put some personal vision into a 15-day project, but I don't have a personal vision to get in the way of making pictures. If you're a boxer, when the bell rings, you come out fighting. He got this job done in just over 2 weeks. And that's not to say there isn't depth to what's a fairly predictable storyline. The character of Leon Poole, played brilliantly by Wendell Corey, was a man with whom the director clearly sympathized. Although he's ostensibly the villain of the piece, the audience ends up empathizing much more with his story than that of the harried and henpecked cop and his nagging wife. No excuses are made for Leon's sociopathic behavior, but 10 years after the end of World War II, the film clearly suggests that our society was filled with soldiers who had only tenuously reintegrated into society, and some were ticking time bombs waiting to explode. It's 1956, and the killer is loose.